Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Book of Dread. We're going to be starting what is hopefully a very long, drawn out series of Christmas specials. Now, this is going to be a little bit different from your usual expected Christmas special because you would expect us to do something like Krampus or Violent Nights or uh, Die Hard or something like that. But we decided to go a different route, and we're reviewing a movie called I Trapped the Devil,
I
which
trapped that devil. Sorry, go ahead.
doesn't have a lot of Christmas influence, but what is there is the classy type, I would say. This is not your flashy horror movie. This is very dramatic. It's gonna be a little bit difficult for us as far as like reviewing stuff goes. We're gonna be challenged here because we don't usually do this sort of review. We for like the flashy stuff mainly, like paranormal, freaky, which this is paranormal, but it's mainly drama. But yeah, so starting it off, I know you particularly loved the intro. Me, honestly, I didn't really understand much of it, so I don't have
I said it was the
a
worst intro
conviction.
I've ever seen ever.
I don't remember it.
It was honestly I don't even remember it either. So
I think
uh,
it wasn't it like the policeman like coming into the house?
maybe
Wasn't it that cop and he like saw something on the TV like like the flickering static and it
I'm
just
pretty
like cut
I'm
there.
pretty sure they used the same scene from the ending as the intro,
That's what I was saying. Yeah,
which I mean I whatever, but I no I didn't I it was the opposite. I didn't like the intro at all. I thought it was
yeah,
stupid. I mean
yeah. I thought
well
it didn't make much sense. I thought it was pretty dumb.
it set the
Uh,
fucking tone for the rest of the movie. So
so so after this intro scene, right? So we get on to a couple, middle aged, um, wife kind of got like the chicken eyes, like their 1,000 yard stare going on. Um, the husband, he was critical balding. I know me and Kborg aren't much better, but
not
um,
compared to Steve. Definitely not compared to Steve. No, he was
yeah.
not.
So the husband, his name is Matt. Steve is another guy we're about to get into, but yeah, his balding is
Hold
much.
on, I'm getting a call.
So after the intro, we get Matt and Karen. They're a middle aged couple. Matt is infected by critical baldness, which many of us males have. We don't have it as
I've
bad,
got the craziest widow's peak, dude.
but
Craziest. But my wife likes it, so I don't care.
that's a crazy statement.
I don't care,
Anyways,
dude.
Karen, she has a 1,000 yard stare. She looks like a rooster. Um,
Oh, let me add this. She lit a cigarette, and then like in the same scene, they move on to a different shot, like 30 seconds later, and the cigarette's unlit, and you could tell like it hadn't even been lit at all. So that was
yeah,
problem number one.
they show up to relatives' house is pretty much all we know at this point, and
Yeah.
yeah, she's kind of looking around outside. The husband goes up to the door to knock on it, and he just ends up going inside. But yeah, I mean, for this part, it kind of piqued sort of some interest, which I really liked. But I didn't understand the bullet shell casings on the ground that she discovers. That didn't make any sense, honestly.
I think that
And
that like signified that maybe when he trapped the guy that there was a scuffle and he tried to like shoot him or whatever, but ended up trapping it. I don't know. To be honest with you, there's a bunch of questions that were left unanswered in the movie. So I don't know either, man. I don't know.
but yes, after that, they go inside, or the husband is inside at this point, and he's looking around. There's like static playing on the TV, kind of weird. And then his brother, Steve, comes out and he's holding a like big ass kitchen knife like Michael Myers. He's like, he's basically like, "What's up? What are you doing here?" So they kind of get into like a little bit of a spit spat. And he tells him like, "You need to fucking go." He says it very awkwardly and weird. He's like, "Uh, yeah, you guys need to leave. You can't stay here. You go."
But yeah, so after that, Matt explains that Steve is off, and Matt's kind of blaming himself for not being around, and we still have no idea why Steve is like this at all. Then, he's explaining to Karen, I guess, we haven't been here in a long time, and it was honestly wrong. We should have showed up and been a part of his life after what happened. And then they have a really weird, awkward fucking dinner where Steve is just sitting at the head of the table and Matt is just telling him everything that's been going on in their life, and what kind of job Karen got and what kind of job himself had. And Steve just sits there and fucking looks at him, doesn't nod, doesn't say anything. So Matt then gets up and walks to the bathroom, makes a funny little face behind Steve.
Hmm.
Then we kind of get when the phone rings and he answers it, that's when we get the sense of something paranormal. After that, that's when like he answers the phone and Matt walks in, and there's just heavy breathing whenever Steve like answers the phone. It's just heavy breathing. Steve just puts the phone back. Matt walks in, and Steve very seriously said, "Do you trust me?" And Matt was like, "Yeah, I guess, sure, yeah." And he was like, "No, do you trust me?" So I'm getting another phone call. By the way, literally after having dinner and not saying a fucking word to anybody, except for whenever Matt gets up to leave, Steve starts talking to Karen a little bit. But it was like Steve at dinner didn't want to have anything to fucking do with Matt, and now he's asking him to trust him. So then we move on to, I guess, the fucking meat, the disgusting trash meat pile of this movie. So
Yeah. So Steve decides to tell Matt what he's been dealing with. He says that he has the devil trapped in his basement. So then Matt immediately goes to Karen and relays this information to her.
stressed out.
And he's
Steve was
like
stressed out.
stressed, yeah, super stressed, drinking a lot. Anyways, though, he does that, lets Karen know. So then Steve takes both of them down to the basement and shows them the door, and it's got like a cross boarded up onto it and all this other stuff. But then he takes the cross off, and you can hear like a small little like faint voice talking, and it's very funny how the voice sounds. Like, it obviously doesn't sound like a person at all. It honestly sounds like one of the like voices that Meat Canyon does in like his cartoons.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but so he does that, and they don't really believe it, right? They're kind of in disbelief as to what's happening. Matt kind of wants to. He wants to believe it. He wants to give his brother the benefit of doubt. But it's just such a crazy idea.
yeah,
Karen, on the other hand, is more so like, no, there's no way this is true. This motherfucker just has a man trapped in his basement. We need to like tell
get him
people.
out.
We need to get him locked up or get him some type of help.
Yeah,
Um,
this is the point where I was questioning, like, did something happen in their family, like for there to be just a fucking man trapped down in their family? Was there's like generational trauma or something? Because Matt just kind of seems awfully suspicious, like he fucking knows something, So
Judging by how Steve is, could probably be true. But from there, Karen basically goes off to the room. She kind of just doesn't pay much attention to what they're doing. So Steve talks to Matt a little bit more about the idea of, like, trust me, I need you to trust me. He shows him the attic, where he's like got all of this evidence and stuff. And while that's going on, Karen goes down into the basement, tries to get a little bit of information for herself, She takes off the cross again, and the prisoner starts talking to her. She just goes ahead, decides to kind of like sit there for a second. He ends up coming down there, Steve does, and he points the gun at Karen. They end up going upstairs. They end up having Steve point the gun at them, and he's asking them what's going on.
It almost seems like Kieran was really affected by what the guy said down there. It was almost like, I wouldn't say seduced, but you could tell the voice took effect on somebody's like mental.
Deceived her.
Yeah, like she was. It was like she was in a completely different place. She didn't speak. She didn't whimper or nothing when she was saying it. She seemed totally unaffected by the gun, by the way. So I
Yeah.
don't know. But anyway, so after that, and Matt's like, "Get that fucking thing out of my face." So Steve, he complies and puts the gun down. But Steve was like, "Yeah, you were affected by it. What did he tell you down there?" You know, and Karen didn't say a fucking word. And Matt's just doing what he does the entire movie, and he's like, you know, well, we can get you some help, or, you know, he's trying to maybe understand a little bit more. But here's one thing I will say, you know, he had like a ton of shit on the windows. I don't know if you noticed that, but he had like newspaper, like it was almost like, you
Yeah.
know, like in the trailer parks down here in the dirty South, you see a lot of like trailers put like tinfoil up in their windows, or like blankets up in their windows and stuff. And but like here, I think it was like a sense of trying to show he was really paranoid about something. So this particular scene stood out to me because it's the best set in the entire movie. It fucking, I went like, I seriously was whoa, you know, when I saw it, because there's so much detail. But I guess it's the attic. It looked like that meme, like the Workaholics meme, but it's basically just like a detective's board, for instance. And that is when Matt says the title phrase, "I trapped the devil." So Steve explains to Matt that there are a bunch of like missing people, and they come back after a month as if nothing happened. And he just explains to him, he shows him this book, and he explains to him like there's man to man evil, where people do it for greed and they do it for revenge or whatever. And then he's like, then there's pure evil. Man does bad things just because he wants to see other men suffer. He really fucking believes he trapped the devil, right? And he's like, I've seen him transform in my own eyes. So Matt then asks about the phone calls. Steve says he thinks someone is coming for the devil, and he was like, you know, I walk out on the street and people just stare at me. I don't do anything. I don't say anything. They just stare. And he said, something's coming. Something is coming for what's trapped down in my basement. Hold on. I think we got it all wrong, but it's fine. Okay, Jordan just left. I think Jordan quit. Never mind. So we got it wrong.
This episode of the Book of Dread is sponsored by Target Blue Light Glasses. Target Blue Light Glasses are the perfect way to block blue light rays from examining your eyes while you play video games. If you wear blue light glasses, you can play video games for at least 4 more hours per day. Go to Target now and buy you a pair of blue light glasses. Only $19.99.
While they're in the attic, that's when Karen goes down there. Steve then challenges Karen to open the door, and Karen's like, you know, awfully suspicious about what the fuck is going on, because she seemed affected by it. She doesn't know. Matt isn't helping the situation, because Matt's like, my brother's fucking crazy, so let's just play along. And Steve is just telling her, "Open the door, just open it." And then what does he do? What does Steve do, Jordan? What does he do to Karen?
I don't know exactly. I guess it's chloroform on the rag, but he chloroform rags her and essentially like chains her up down in the basement, puts her on a red chain down in the basement. Um, and then Matt is locked up in the attic. He puts a table in front of the attic door so he can't get out. But Matt like quickly gets it moved out of the way because it's not like very, locked tight. He didn't put it in a way that it couldn't be broken out of.
Yeah,
Um, but he's going all around the house looking for, I guess, something that's supposed to have gotten out because he's crazy. And he's freaking out and everything. So he thinks that it's been let out, and he's walking around the living room, and finally, this old, like hobo-ish looking man is holding like ripped parts of, I guess, like a stuffed bunny.
Oh,
And he's
let me point out. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Let me point out though, like Steve and Matt were both looking for each other.
yeah,
Like Steve was trying to like, I guess, kill Matt, and Matt was just trying to get to Steve because I guess Matt thought that Steve was having a psychotic break. Like they're looking, and I was so confused, so fucking confused. But it's until after that scene and looking back on it now, the reason why Matt couldn't find, or why Steve couldn't find Matt, is because Steve was hallucinating. Now, I will
yeah,
say that scene was one of the better ones because it caught me off guard. And it wasn't a jump scare. The guy was like, "Can you help me? Can you help me
yeah,
with this? Hey, can you help me with this?" Yeah. So
yeah.
the guy, and so I thought that was a pretty good scene. And but yeah, he's holding the bunnies, right? And he's like, "I can't stop the bleeding."
And then Steve starts to have like a vision of his dead wife like
Yeah.
dancing, and then she starts like screaming, and she starts screaming like a demonic, like deranged, deformed voice.
Yeah, and
Um,
then also this is when Matt is in the basement, or not the basement, rather the attic, and that's whenever the viewers see that his wife and at least one kid, he didn't specify, had been killed in an accident.
yeah, it
So now,
reveals that on a newspaper that Matt finds.
yeah,
Um, but he starts, seeing red and hallucinating. He says that she's not real, and he's like pointing the gun at her and everything. And then finally he breaks out of it because Matt and Karen are there, asking him to like put the gun down and just stop. He ends up putting the gun down. He gives it over to Matt. That's whenever Matt or Steve decides to run away, and he goes upstairs.
Matt decides that he's gonna go and fucking free the prisoner. He's like, I'm done playing this fucking game with you and trying to play along, and you're just fucking crazy. And that's whenever we find out that it may be the guy that killed his family. And that's because earlier on in the movie, when Karen's down there, a very, very important thing that was said that was kind of like foreshadowing is the guy in the behind the door in the basement said, "Why won't you just let me go? Is it because of what I did to them?" And just started laughing.
Yeah,
So when Matt tries to free the guy, both Karen and Steve tried to dissuade him. And I guess this is when Karen starts to finally realize that Steve is telling the truth. Well, Steve runs over in front of the door and says, "I'm not going to move out of the way." So Matt tries to force him. When he steps in to try and force him, that's whenever Steve ultimately stabs Matt, his own brother. What happens after that?
he runs away, uh, kind of, just in awe of what just happened because he obviously wasn't even in himself. He wasn't there when that happened. He was somewhere else.
Yeah.
Karen's just silent. She just, drops and starts crying on Matt as he's bleeding out. Steve goes upstairs and he's sitting there. He's crying and he's got blood on his hands. And then Karen comes up right behind him, sitting in the door, and then she game ends him. From there, we get a cut to of Karen going downstairs. The imprisoner, the devil, the man, is trying to convince her that they can still save Matt uh, if she just opens the door and lets him out. And she doesn't do it, and he applauds her, like joking around, saying how she almost, he almost got her. Uh, and you get a cut from there to the police in their car. They get a call. They answer the call. They pull up to the house. They bust inside. They see all the stuff that's thrown everywhere, all the trash, all the debris. He goes upstairs. Um, and then you have the younger guy, or the older guy, I'm sorry, and he's looking at like the static on the TV. He's looking around. He goes eventually to the room that Steve was shot in, and he's like, "Oh my God!" And he screams for his partner,
Hmm.
and
Ben.
doesn't get any type of answer. So he starts to go down into the basement, and he starts to hear the man's voice. Someone there. Can you please help me? Please help me. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's shot.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which he also shoots Karen as well. So
yeah, so
Karen shot him. Yeah.
him and
Yeah.
Karen traded IRL. Soon after, his younger partner comes downstairs and he notices that he's shot. He notices that Karen's shot, and the voice starts talking to him. He's like, "Please let me out. Please let me out." And Karen, bleeding out in a haze, is like, "Don't do it." And he decides to go ahead and go do it anyways. So the door slowly opens, slowly revealing, and what comes out are two little ballet tap shoes, and up goes the stairs is a little girl.
Yep.
And she walks out of the house. It's like Christmas morning, basically. It's snowing outside. Um, and there's a big, like, huge house right in front of this house across the street. She walks out onto the street and just goes off.
Yep. And
And that's the end
so
of the movie.
yeah, you're really left to interpret that too. Like I guess the way I interpreted that was when Steve said, "I've seen it with my own eyes." He transformed into the most evil thing imaginable. I guess for the sake of seeming innocent, he just morphed himself into a little girl. And so, but I will say, both Ben and Alan, the two cops, were also affected by the voice as well. So, and I think at one point Steve brings up like the voice will affect you. I know he said it multiple times. I know you can feel it, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know. The ending was, I mean, it was all right, but it just there's so many unanswered questions, and we'll get into that with the review part of this video. I wanted to know the significance of the TV. And I don't really think like there's a lot of things that the viewer has to interpret in this movie. I don't know why. I don't know if it was just a style choice from the writing or if they just I don't know if they tried to elevate it, right? Because that's what fucking elevated horror is nowadays. Like you interpret it in your own way. I don't know if it was that or just bad writing. It just I wrote down questions. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions, and only two of them got answered. The TV, I guess, kind of was like a gateway for the devil to manipulate whoever it was in the house, because that's the same thing that happened with the cop. Steve saw his wife, and I guess the cop saw his dad. I don't know. It was weird.
Something like that. It looked like Santa, like somebody that was like Santa Claus that took their beard off and shit.
Yeah. And yeah, I also wrote down here that the story is very cryptic, and again, I don't know if that's a style choice or if it's just lazy writing. My questions were, why did he do it? Which I guess kind of got answered. Um, Why is Matt somewhat on his side? That definitely got answered for me. Just because Matt thought he was fucking, he should have been in the loony bin. How is he in this house? Which that was not answered. You're left to interpret that. Why did he trap him and not kill him? That never got answered. And I guess that is for the way I interpret that is I guess he thought it was better to keep the devil trapped rather than to kill him because you can't. Maybe. And you know what? Maybe it was answered because in the movie, there's a book. Now, I don't know if it was talking about the devil himself or if it was just talking about Satanism as a whole. But that book holds some significance to this question. So I guess, like I said, maybe he just thought that there is no way to kill him and it's better to trap him. And what led to all of it, got answered in the movie, which was his fucking family died. How I feel about this movie, my problems are the audio. The audio was trash, really, really bad. The acting, Karen and Matt were god fucking awful, and Steve was amazing. Steve really, really played the paranoid part well. And I kind of at the beginning of the movie and like watching the trailer, I was like, "Fuck, dude, I really like can relate to this guy," because you hear sounds at night and you get paranoid, and you it's all just imagination in your head. But I guess most normal people will hear a sound and be like, "Ah, well, it's just the house," you know. But for me, it's like, what the fuck was that? So, but as we get deeper and deeper into the movie, he just played that part really well as a crazy guy. The jump scares were god awful, super cheap, nothing paid off. You know, they did a really good job at building tension in some places where it was needed, but they didn't even use jump scares. It was just we're at the dinner table and the phone rings. And then we're here doing this, and I think somebody was talking or whatever, and it cuts to a TV screen with the static, and they just turned it up by 50 dB. Another thing is that the only good set piece out of this entire movie wasn't even the basement, the main area. It was the attic. The amount of detail that they had in there, which I mean, you can't really say it was detail oriented, I guess, because it's very simple to do something like that, like the detective bulletin board, where you've got the red rope and the push pins and stuff. But I just thought it fit so well, and it was a very different set piece to the rest of the house. The real question is, do I consider this a Christmas movie? No, I do not. I think that they set it in Christmas. I don't, and they obviously weren't marketing it as a Christmas movie. What's funny to me is that the only question that they can answer straight up and decide to answer straight up, Karen and Matt showed up because it's Christmas time. My rating on this, I probably give it a 2 out of 5. It was good in some parts, but the movie was a stinker.
I think for me on this movie, I enjoyed it for what it was. I honestly, I don't really know that I could even consider it a horror movie necessarily because there wasn't really ever a moment of suspense that was felt. Um, there were like 2 to 3 sort of jump scare things. Again, they weren't in any way really scary, nor did ever truly feel that they were trying to be, honestly. I felt like they were just more so like displays of what Steve was experiencing. As far as like the atmosphere and stuff, I liked the front yard. It had sort of it conveyed sort of like a holiday, house. Somebody tried a little bit, but overall the area just felt creepy. And then you get into the house, and it's the house of like a batshit conspiracy theorist sort of vibe. Yeah, I liked some of the pieces in it. I liked the basement; it was all right. The door obviously being the main part of it. The attic was obviously really cool, and the daughter's, I guess it was his daughter's room that they stayed in. I thought was interesting, and I wish could have maybe got a little bit more lore on it. other than just like Karen looking at the picture. But overall, as far as the plot goes, I liked the premise. I thought it was very interesting. You know, that estranged family member that nobody really talks to or sees. You go and visit him, and you're only doing it because it's Christmas. I liked how that was really the only element of Christmas they felt the need to input into the movie. You know, everything else, just leave it up to the actual story. Don't make it about Christmas. Um, I liked that because whenever I start watching horror movies that are about Christmas, I just I lose interest because it's not really a Christmas movie, it's a horror movie. So it's supposed to be about scary stuff, not Christmas that's filled with cheer and joy.
Yeah.
So I liked that aspect. I didn't necessarily like the hallucination part of him trapping Karen and trapping Matt. I thought that that part should have really just been left out. It just kind of felt like a cheap twist that they added in just to have like one of those moments. And then the moment of, you know, getting to where you actually see the person that's trapped down there and it's the little girl also didn't feel like as much of a twist as it should have been. I'd also just it didn't feel like it needed to be a twist. For what the movie was, it should have been a payoff of, you know, something that's creepy. I'm not gonna say like just straight up a, you know, stock devil image, you know, character, but something that's like truly creepy and terrifying for him to have this sort of response to it other than just a little girl. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I thought the visualizations of his wife were, I don't know, it felt like it was just trying to do like a ring sort of thing, which just didn't fit into the movie overall. I mean, I get the idea of um, demons can interfere with like televisions and stuff and use that to
Yeah.
uh, communicate, but it just, I don't know. It kind of just came off as like a taunt, which obviously this dude's had communication with what's down there before. He's trapped what's down there, so it's not like you need to communicate in that way. That form of communication, at least in horror movies and, you know, the boundaries of it, is best when you don't know what it is and something is trying to present itself to you and show itself to you and you've never seen it before.
Yeah.
um, that genuinely builds creepiness. So for me, would probably put it about a 2.5 out of 5. I was gonna go for 3 originally, but it just never had a true moment where the movie hit. Like the dramatization, you know, it was interesting. Uh, it was, you know, it was good. Um, but as far as a hook, there wasn't ever really a hook. Like the main hook of the movie was finding out what was
There's no
behind the
payoff.
door.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no payoff.
yeah, the finding out behind what was behind the door, and there wasn't a payoff there. It was a disappointment more than
Yeah.
anything.
The payoff was another question to ask yourself rather than an answer to a question. And I hate movies like that. Like
Yeah,
to me, it's not fucking 1970 or 1980 anymore. We're making these movies now that are supposed to be a showing of how good somebody can write. Right? Like the acting, whatever. You know, that's fine. The way that I feel about movies nowadays, you can have good writing but shitty actors, and that's fine. But if you have good actors and shitty writing, everybody gets pissed. And it's because there's no payoff. People are paying money to watch your movie, and I'm not talking about necessarily this movie. I'm talking about every movie in general. People are paying money now. And people are paying money monthly in these big fucking studios nowadays. They just push shit out. And that's why we see a resurgence now. Horror has always been the black sheep of the film industry. The studios are making resurgences now. I mean, you have Blumhouse, massive fucking production company that are like, yeah, let's make these movies. Let's do it, putting so much money behind it. But then you have people like A24. I don't care if it sounds like I'm dick riding A24. They are the leaders of this resurgence. Their movies are fucking wonderful. And then you have the indie movies. And they're fucking phenomenal too. What happens is that some people, either they're new, which I mean, maybe these people who made this movie are new, or there's people that just push shit out. Netflix, Paramount, Sony, like these big fucking names. They're just pushing movies out. Yeah, put a couple jump scares in there, it'll be fine. But there's no story. So the, I guess, the conclusion, this little tangent I just went on, is that, like I said, you can have shitty acting but a good story, and it's fine. At least for me. But if you have bad writing and good actors, it's fucking, look at Game of Thrones season 8. That's the ultimate example of this. So the writing of this movie is fucking hot garbage. Hot garbage. And they could have done so much better with it. And I was hoping that it would be good. Because it's such a good concept. I trapped the devil in my fucking basement is such a good concept. But you watch it and there's no answers. There's only questions. So
Well, I guess that wraps up another entry into the book of Dread, the
yeah,
Two Friends podcast.
P.S. We haven't been releasing a lot because of the holidays and stuff, and we wanted to get something out before Christmas happened. Next year, we're gonna be grinding. I guess we can just go ahead and talk about, which we really haven't discussed, but we can talk about some things we have that are coming soon. We are trying to figure out a way for us to, which we know a way, but we're trying to lay the groundwork for us to be able to record in person as well. I guess the problem back then when we recorded in person, we've had podcasts and stuff in the past, and then like there's like 20 people that show up to be on it, and we don't like that. So, but we're more than likely going to build a set at my house, not necessarily a set, but I'm just waiting for some things logistically to be done at my house, so that way we can record in person. And I think we're going to, instead of sitting on a fucking computer to watch movies, we're going to do it the best way and sit on my lovely, very comfortable couch with my very expensive sound system and TV to watch these movies. And maybe that makes it better. I don't know. I mean, the past two movies we've done have been stinkers. So, but anyway, that's the end of the PS. So, that's it.
Goodbye.